a group of Jewish terrorists carrying ladders and explosives were stopped in the sanctuary by Muslim security guards in the middle of the night. 4 days later, time bombs were discovered at one of its gates. They were detonated by explosive experts. By the spring of '84, armed Israeli guards were patrolling the sanctuary 24 hours a day, their presence and behavior inimical to the sanctity of the mosque. The Supreme Muslim Council petitioned the Prime Minister repeatedly to withdraw the soldiers, but with no effect. With no response forthcoming from the Israelis, the Supreme Muslim Council petitioned the UN in May of 1984 to pressure Israel to withdraw its troops from Al-Aqsa. Despite continued demands for their withdrawal, Israeli soldiers continue to patrol the sanctuary on the pretense of protecting it from attack. In reality, it is the Muslim-run Aqsa security force, underpaid, understaffed, and unarmed, whose vigilance has provided the only protection for the noble sanctuary in virtually all the acts of terrorism against it. The UN Security Council has passed more than 20 resolutions condemning Israel's annexation of Old Jerusalem and its military occupation of the West Bank. Repeated violations of human rights led directly to the Intifada, the Palestinian uprising, in the winter of 1987. Recognizing the Intifada's roots in the revival of Islam, the Israelis increased their attacks on places of worship throughout Palestine. On June 15, 1988, Israeli troops stormed Al-Aqsa Mosque, firing tear gas into groups of worshippers. A month later, the discovery of new excavations adjacent to the sanctuary led to more civil disorders. Less than 1 year later, soldiers were forced from the precincts of the noble sanctuary by the more than 20,000 Muslims who gathered in Al-Aqsa for the first Friday prayer in Ramadan. Roadblocks were set up around Jerusalem the following week, and Palestinians from the West Bank and Gaza were barred from the mosque. Meanwhile, the aspiration to rebuild a Jewish temple on the site of the Dome of the Rock has become more and more open, despite the Judaic injunction. A recent article on rebuilding the temple, appearing in one of Israel's major color supplements, The Nation, explores such obtuse questions as the location of toilets, parking spaces, and gift shops, and whether or not to air condition, while pondering the more serious implications of the multi-billion-dollar projected annual income generated by their anticipated monopoly of the Jewish pilgrim trade. A visit to the Institute of the Temple overlooking the Wailing Wall and the sanctuary itself reveals just how busy some have been in making preparations for what they feel may be a forthcoming event. A scale model of the Second Temple, with diagrams and maps of various aspects of the temple, are on display, based on descriptions of their original counterparts recorded in the Mishnah, together with a miniature version of the Ark of the Covenant, thought to be buried somewhere under Al-Aqsa. Major expenditures in time and money have already been made to reproduce what are thought to be exact replicas of the myriad utensils necessary for the performance of the complex rituals to take place within the temple. A recent debate in Jerusalem between Muslims, Jews, and Christians, televised in Britain, included the serious suggestion by an Israeli participant that the Dome of the Rock could be relocated, as the temples of Ramses II were in the Aswan Dam project, to make way for the new Jewish temple. If the Israelis' enthusiasm for moving Arabs out of their houses is anything to go by, not to mention their fondness for blowing them up, then the Muslims better keep an eye on Al-Aqsa and the Dome of the Rock. Harassment and acts of terrorism against Muslims living adjacent to the sanctuary, while officially not condoned, are part of an ongoing policy to drive them from this area. The eventual bulldozing and replacement of their houses with Jewish condominium fortress complexes can only be a harbinger of things to come. The Israelis seem busy preparing for a war while creating the desperation, injustice, and despair necessary to provoke one. Where can it possibly lead? To the West Bank and Gaza? To the Intifada and a people who have had enough of the insatiable greed and thoughtlessness of an unconscionable occupation? And to Al-Aqsa, to the furthest mosque, not to the idol that the temple became, where prophets were slaughtered and the pure religion of Abraham was abandoned, but to the site from where the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, made his journey through the heavens to his Lord. Regarding his ascent, he said in a section of the tradition related by Thabit al-Bunani on the authority of Anas, I found Abraham leaning his back against the frequented house which is entered daily by 70,000 angels who do not return to it. I was then taken up to the lote tree of the furthest boundary, whose leaves are like elephants' ears and whose fruits are like earthen vessels. When what God commands overshadows it, it changes, and none of God's creatures can describe it because of its beauty. God revealed to me what he revealed and made obligatory 50 prayers every day and night. I came down to Moses, who asked what my Lord had made obligatory for my people. When I told him he had prescribed 50 prayers every day and night, he said, Go back to your Lord and ask him to lighten them, for your people are not capable of that. I have tested Bani Israel and have experience. I went back to my Lord and said, O my Lord, make things lighter for my people. So he relieved me of 5. When I returned to Moses and told him he had relieved me of 5, he said, Your people are not capable of that. So go back to your Lord and ask him to make things still lighter. I then kept going back and forth between my Lord and Moses, till he said, Muhammad, there are 5 prayers every day and night. Each will count as 10, making 50 times of prayer. He who intends to do a good action but does not do it will have a good action recorded for him. If he does do it, it will be recorded for him 10 times. He who intends to do a wrong action and does not do it will have nothing recorded for him. If he does do it, 1 wrong action will be recorded for him. I then came down. When I came to Moses and told him, he said, Go back to your Lord and ask him to make things lighter. God's messenger said that he replied, I have gone back to my Lord till I am ashamed before him. Muslim transmitted it.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفره إنه كان توابا